They told the world Eleanor Whitaker was unconscious. Eleanor kept her eyes closed and let them believe it. The ventilator breathed for her in cold, measured bursts while a black man in a navy janitorial shirt leaned close to the bed no one else touched without gloves, titles, or permission. The gold letters on his chest said janitorial. The diamond watch on Eleanor's pale wrist could have paid his rent for 20 years. Outside the glass door, Grant Vale whispered that if she stayed silent until Friday, the board could move without her. In Isaiah Cole's pocket, his cracked phone buzzed with a message from his 8-year-old son. "Dad, please don't be late again." His job, his child, his dignity, and her life were all caught inside the same 30 seconds. Isaiah looked once at the security camera, then bent toward the billionaire everyone had already started treating like property. "Mrs. Whitaker," he whispered, "everybody outside that door is waiting for your silence to make them rich. I don't want $1 from you. I just need you to know somebody in this room still believes you're alive. Before this goes any further, drop the city or country where this story found you, and subscribe if stories about dignity under pressure still matter." Because a man with a mop cart was not supposed to say something that made an ICU go quiet. He was not supposed to notice what doctors had dismissed. He was not supposed to speak to Eleanor Whitaker, founder of the hospital wing, owner of the medical group, the woman whose name was carved into marble downstairs. Dr. Malcolm Pierce entered before the silence could settle. His white coat was spotless. Isaiah's sleeves carried the faint smell of bleach. Pierce did not look at Isaiah's face. He looked at the gloves, the mop bucket, the patch on his chest. "You can clean around the bed," he said, low enough to sound professional. "Don't talk to the patient." Isaiah did not argue. He did not beg for respect. He only straightened slowly, one hand covering his badge as if to keep something from slipping loose. But Eleanor had already seen it. Not the front, not the word that made men like Pierce dismiss him. When Isaiah leaned over her blanket, the badge had flipped for half a second, and taped behind it was a small folded note written in a child's uneven pencil. "See people first." Eleanor could not swallow around the tube. She could not turn her head. She could not tell him that she had heard the lawyers discuss incapacity, heard her CFO count the days until her signature no longer mattered, heard a cousin ask whether the penthouse would be sealed before the press found out. But she heard him. This tired black single father with floor wax on his boots and a son waiting somewhere in the dark had spoken to her like she was still a person inside the body they had stopped asking questions of. The monitor gave one small, nervous jump. Pierce saw it. Grant saw it from behind the glass. Isaiah saw it too, and that was the dangerous part. His phone buzzed again with Caleb's name. He should have walked out, finished the room, and gone home to the only person in the world who needed him more than a billionaire did. Instead, Isaiah looked back at Eleanor and lowered his voice until it was almost swallowed by the ventilator. "If you can hear me, ma'am, don't answer them yet. Let them show you who they are." Then he turned toward the door, and the corner of his janitorial badge slipped free again, revealing the child's note one more time. Long before Eleanor understood why that paper mattered, it had been lying on a small kitchen table beside an unpaid rent envelope, waiting for a father who was already running out of ways to keep every promise. Hours before Isaiah Cole whispered beside Eleanor Whitaker's ventilator, the child's note behind his badge was still clean, still flat, still hidden beneath the plastic clip on his kitchen table. Caleb had written it before breakfast, his small hand pressing so hard that the pencil almost tore through the paper. "See people first." Isaiah read it once, then folded it without smiling, because smiling too much in that apartment could make a boy believe everything was fine. Everything was not fine. The rent envelope sat beside the toaster with a red stamp across the front. His phone screen was split down the middle. A message from his supervisor waited unopened. One more late punch-out, and HR gets involved. Isaiah slid 2 pieces of toast onto Caleb's plate and gave him the one with more butter. Caleb noticed. He always noticed. "Dad, you didn't eat." Isaiah lifted a chipped mug of black coffee like evidence. "Grown man breakfast." Caleb frowned, broke his toast in half, and pushed the bigger piece back across the table. Isaiah looked at it for a second. Pride told him to refuse. Fatherhood told him to take the smaller half and let the boy feel useful. The kitchen light buzzed above them. On the chair by the door hung Isaiah's navy janitorial shirt, washed thin at the elbows, the badge clipped over the pocket where men in suits would later see only one word. Janitorial. Caleb saw something else. He picked up the badge, turned it over, and taped the note to the back with the careful seriousness of a child fixing the world with school supplies. So when people get mean, Caleb said, "You remember what you told me." Isaiah paused with one hand on the lunchbox. "What did I tell you?" Caleb looked up. "That people get invisible when everybody's in a hurry." The words landed soft and heavy. Isaiah had said that months earlier after Caleb watched a nurse ignore an old man asking for water in a clinic lobby. Isaiah had filled the cup himself. It cost him a warning for being late to work. Caleb remembered the water, not the warning. That was the danger of raising a child. They kept your best moments alive when you were trying to survive your worst ones. Before leaving, Isaiah opened the hall closet for his work shoes. On the top shelf, behind a stack of overdue bills, sat a small metal case he had not touched in years. Inside were old trauma shears, a pen light, and a faded EMT certification card with a corner bent white. Caleb glanced at it, but Isaiah closed the case before questions could come. "Not tonight," he said quietly. By afternoon, his old sedan coughed twice before starting. He dropped Caleb with the neighbor downstairs and promised he would be back before bedtime. Caleb held the doorframe instead of letting go. "You said that last night." Isaiah crouched to his level. "No excuses, no speech, just truth small enough for a child to carry. Then tonight, I have to do better." At Whitaker Memorial, Isaiah clocked in 3 minutes early and took the hardest section without complaint. He cleaned vomit from an elevator, emptied trash near the emergency entrance, and quietly adjusted a blanket over a sleeping homeless veteran security had been told to move. 27 floors above him, a private ambulance arrived through a covered bay. He did not know the woman inside owned the name on the building. He only heard the call over his radio while rinsing gray water from a mop. "Cole, VIP wing. Room 714. No dilas. Patient is Eleanor Whitaker." Isaiah looked at Caleb's last message glowing on his broken screen. "Dad, please don't be late again." Then the radio crackled a second time. "Cole, did you hear me?" Isaiah heard the radio crackle while Caleb's message still glowed on his broken screen. "Dad, please don't be late again." He pressed his thumb over the words as if pressure could hold a promise together, then clipped the radio to his belt. "I heard you," he said. The service elevator carried him higher than he had ever been assigned. Past pediatrics, past surgery, past the crowded public floors where families slept upright in plastic chairs with vending machine coffee cooling between their shoes. The VIP wing opened with a soft chime into a hallway that smelled less like sickness than money. Polished marble, white orchids, leather chairs no one dared wrinkle, silence thick enough to feel purchased. Isaiah's old work shoes squeaked once against the floor. The security guard at the private desk looked up from a tablet and stopped him with 2 fingers, not a hand. "Badge." Isaiah turned the plastic card forward. "Janitorial." The guard read the word before he read the name. "Room 714 is restricted. Facilities called me for turnover. This isn't a regular room." Isaiah looked past him at the glass doors, the private nurse's station, and the bronze letters on the wall. Whitaker Memorial Executive Care. He did not lower his eyes. Then it probably needs to be cleaner than a regular room. The guard held his stare a second too long, then buzzed him through like he was admitting equipment. Inside room 714, Eleanor Whitaker lay beneath white sheets, a ventilator tube crossing her mouth, her silver hair smoothed back with a care that made her look less alive, not more. Her diamond watch still circled her wrist. A woman could own the building and still be reduced to numbers on a screen. Dr. Malcolm Pierce stood near the monitors, speaking in clipped phrases to Grant Vale, whose tailored suit looked untouched by the night. "No unnecessary staff in here," Pierce said without turning. "Then tell facilities not to page unnecessary staff," Isaiah answered, quiet enough not to challenge, clear enough not to disappear. Grant finally looked at him, not his face, at the mop cart, at the bleach on his sleeves, at the gold letters on his chest. Make it quick, Grant said. The board is waiting for an update. Isaiah began with the floor because floors told the truth before people did. A smear of dried rainwater near the bed. Will marks from a private ambulance stretcher. A crescent scratch in the marble where someone had moved fast and careless. He worked around the machines without touching what was not his to touch. Still, his eyes kept returning to Eleanor's hand. Not because it moved, because it almost had. When Grant leaned close to Pierce and murmured, "If she remains non-responsive through Friday, succession becomes clean," the green line on monitor jumped once, sharp and small. Pierce tapped the screen without concern. Artifact. Isaiah wrung the mop slowly. The folded note behind his badge brushed his chest. See people first. His son was waiting. His supervisor was counting minutes. Every instinct told him to finish the floor and leave rich people to their own locked doors. But when Grant said the word succession again, Eleanor Whitaker's thumb pressed once against the sheet. Isaiah did not move when Eleanor Whitaker's thumb pressed against the sheet. Moving too quickly would make it vanish. Men like Grant Vail knew how to bury small things under large words, and Dr. Pierce had already given this one a name. Artifact. So Isaiah lowered the mop into the bucket, let the gray water swallow the sound, and watched from the corner of his eye. Grant stayed silent for 6 seconds. Pierce adjusted the ventilator setting with practice calm. Eleanor's hand went still again, pale beneath the hospital light, her diamond watch ticking against a body everyone was treating like an empty room. Isaiah stepped toward the trash bin beside the bed, close enough to see the tiny crease her thumb had left in the sheet. It was not proof. Not yet. Proof belonged to people with badges that opened doors, signatures that moved money, and degrees framed on walls. Isaiah had a plastic janitorial clip with his son's note taped behind it. See people first. He remembered an old EMT instructor saying that every patient deserved a voice in the room, even when the room had decided they had none. Isaiah had believed that once. He still did, though believing the wrong person at the wrong time had cost him more than a uniform. He looked at Eleanor without fully turning his head. "Ma'am," he said softly, as if speaking to the floor, "if that was pain, forgive me. If that was anger, hold on to it." Pierce stopped writing. "Excuse me." Isaiah straightened with the trash liner in one hand. Her line changed when he said succession. Grant's face stayed smooth, but something tightened near his jaw. Pierce gave a thin smile, the kind used on children and inconvenient staff. "You are not qualified to interpret neurological activity." "No, sir," Isaiah said, "but I am qualified to notice when something happens twice." Silence moved through the room like a draft. The nurse near the door looked from Isaiah to the monitor, then down to Eleanor's hand. For one dangerous second, doubt entered a place built to keep doubt out. Grant stepped closer to the bed. "This is inappropriate. He's upsetting the room." The words were careful, not upsetting the patient. The room. Isaiah heard the difference. He reached for his badge, turning it forward so security would see his name if they asked for it. The movement flipped the plastic clip again, and Caleb's folded note flashed behind it. Eleanor's eyes did not open. Her mouth could not move around the tube. But the monitor ticked up once more, a small green stutter against the black screen. This time the nurse saw it. Pierce saw her see it. "Run a sedation check," she said quietly. Pierce turned on her. "That is not your call." "Then make it yours," she answered, almost too low to hear. For the first time, Grant's hand went to his phone. Isaiah watched his thumb move fast across the glass. A moment later, the security guard outside the door touched his earpiece and looked straight at Isaiah. Relief had lasted less than a breath. Then the nurse stepped toward Eleanor's chart, and the screen locked before she could open it. For one breath, the locked chart did not erase what everyone had just seen. Nurse Monroe had watched the monitor jump. Isaiah had watched it too. Even Dr. Pierce, with all his polished certainty, had gone still long enough for doubt to enter room 714. Monroe pressed her badge to the reader again. "Access denied." "Unlock the chart," she said. "Let me check her sedation level." Pierce's mouth tightened. Grant Vail stood behind him with his phone in hand, eyes flat as glass. There is no medical reason to entertain a janitor's theory. Isaiah did not answer. His gaze stayed on Eleanor Whitaker's hand, on the thumb that had pressed once against the sheet when no one wanted it to mean anything. Then his cracked phone buzzed in his pocket, sharp and small in the expensive silence. Caleb. A picture came through from Mrs. Alvarez downstairs. His son asleep on the sofa with his shoes still on, one arm wrapped around his backpack, waiting for a father who had promised tonight would be different. Isaiah closed his eyes for half a second. That was the cost. Not pride, not drama. A little boy sleeping in borrowed light because his father was standing in a room where powerful men needed him invisible. Grant noticed the phone. You have somewhere else to be, Mr. Cole. Isaiah slipped it back into his pocket. Yes, sir. Then go. The word almost sounded merciful. Then Grant added, before this becomes a formal incident. Monroe turned from the locked chart. He didn't touch the patient. Pierce did not blink. He spoke to a non-responsive VIP patient without authorization, agitated staff, and interfere with care. Now, a monitor fluctuation is being treated like a revelation. Isaiah's fingers moved to steady his badge. The plastic clip had turned sideways. Behind it, Caleb's folded note showed one penciled edge. Grant saw it. His eyes sharpened. What is that? Isaiah covered it with his palm. Nothing that concerns you. Everything in this room concerns me. Grant stepped close enough for Isaiah to smell mint and money on his breath. Security. Check it. Make sure he isn't recording. Isaiah's jaw tightened once. Only once. It's a note from my son. The guard hesitated. Pierce gave a small, humorless laugh. Isaiah let the guard take the badge because refusing would make their lie easier. The note unfolded in the guard's large fingers. See people first. No one spoke. Even Eleanor's monitor seemed to listen. Grant glanced at the words and smiled as if he had found exactly what he needed. A sentimental employee with unauthorized access to a billionaire's room, whispering over her bed, carrying personal messages. Do you understand how this looks? Isaiah looked at the note, then threw the glass at his mop cart waiting in the hallway. I understand how you're trying to make it look. Monroe took one step forward. Grant, this is enough. But Grant slid Caleb's note into a clear evidence sleeve as if a child's handwriting were contraband. Escort Mr. Cole to administration, he said. Have legal meet us there. Isaiah glanced once at Eleanor. Her hand lay still beneath white light and expensive silence. He could still leave, sign whatever they gave him, pick up his son, and pretend he had never seen that thumb move. Then Grant held up the evidence sleeve. You'll get this back after you sign a statement. Isaiah's voice stayed low. What kind of statement? Grant looked at the locked chart, then back at him. The kind that keeps your job, if you're smart enough to stop talking. The statement was waiting on the administration desk before Isaiah Cole even sat down. That was how fast power moved when it wanted a poor man quiet. A hospital attorney placed the paper in front of him with both hands, as if manners could soften the trap. Caleb's note lay beside it inside the clear evidence sleeve. See people first. Under plastic, the words looked smaller. Grant Vale stood by the window, his reflection cut into pieces by the dark glass. Dr. Pierce remained near the door, arms folded, white coat clean, face carefully bored. It's simple, Grant said. You acknowledge that you entered room 714 outside the scope of your duties, spoke inappropriately to an incapacitated patient, and misinterpreted routine monitor activity. Isaiah looked at the statement, then at his badge, clipped beside it like evidence from crime scene. That isn't what happened. The attorney's smile did not move. This is not about what happened, Mr. Cole. This is about liability. There it was. The language of men who could bury a human being without ever raising their voices. Isaiah's cracked phone buzzed. Mrs. Alvarez. Then a text appeared. Caleb woke up asking if you're okay. Isaiah did not touch it. If his hand shook, he would not give Grant the pleasure of seeing it. Grant crossed the room slowly. You sign. You keep your position. We classify this as a misunderstanding. You collect your badge, your son's little note, and you go home tonight. He let that almost sound merciful before opening the blade beneath it. You refuse, and we file a formal breach. Unauthorized contact with a critical VIP patient. Possible recording device. Possible émotionnelle exploitation. Security report. HR review. Pierce added. And if this reaches family court, they may ask why a single father on disciplinary review was alone with a billionaire woman in an ICU room after hours. The room went quiet around that sentence because it had not been aimed at Isaiah. It had been aimed at Caleb. Isaiah felt the old fear move through him, the kind he never let his son see. Men like Grant did not have to shout. They only had to find the softest place in a man's life and press. Grant tapped the evidence sleeve with one finger. This note may feel innocent to you. To legal, it looks like fixation, personal messaging, boundary confusion. Isaiah lifted his eyes. It's my child reminding me not to become the kind of man who looks through people. The attorney slid a pen toward him. Then be the kind of man who protects his child. For one breath, the false choice stood perfectly built. Sign the lie and keep Caleb safe. Refuse the lie and let them turn decency into danger. Down the hall, behind locked doors and glass, Eleanor Whitaker lay trapped in a body powerful men were using as paperwork. Isaiah reached for the pen. Grant's mouth softened into victory, but Isaiah only moved it away from the statement. My son can survive me losing a job, he said. He cannot survive me coming home as a liar and calling protection. Pierce exhaled through his nose. The attorney closed the folder. Grant's face emptied. Then you leave us no option. Security stepped behind Isaiah's chair. At that exact moment, the administration phone rang. No one moved until the attorney answered. Her expression changed by a fraction. She covered the receiver and looked toward Pierce. It's Nurse Monroe from room 714, she said. She says before Mr. Cole signs anything, someone needs to explain why Mrs. Whitaker's heart rate spikes every time Grant Vale says the word succession. For the first time that night, Grant Vale did not have an answer ready. The attorney's hand stayed over the receiver. Dr. Pierce looked toward the closed door as if room 714 had betrayed him from down the hall. Nurse Monroe was not shouting. That made it worse. She spoke with the calm of a woman who had spent 20 years listening to machines tell truths people refused to hear. I printed the strips, she said through the phone. Same spike. Same word. Succession. Isaiah sat very still. Hope was dangerous when it entered a room built by men like Grant. The attorney stood slowly. We need to verify this before any statement is signed. Security brought Isaiah back upstairs, not like a witness, not like a man, but like a problem with legs. In room 714, the printed monitor strips lay on the counter beside Eleanor Whitaker's chart. Small green peaks rose at the marked moments, each one tied to the same conversation they had all pretended did not matter. Nurse Monroe pointed with one steady finger. That is not random. Pierce stepped in front of the papers. It is agitation caused by inappropriate stimulation from an unauthorized employee. The sentence turned the room cold. There it was. Isaiah had not noticed Eleanor. He had harmed her. He had not spoken dignity into a silent room. He had disturbed a billionaire patient for attention. Grant seized it instantly. Then remove him before he causes further distress. Isaiah looked at Eleanor. The ventilator hissed. Her hand lay still beneath the sheet. His eyes moved to his badge in the guard's hand, then to Caleb's note still trapped inside the clear evidence sleeve. See people first. His phone buzzed again. Mrs. Alvarez's name lit the cracked screen, followed by a message that cut deeper than anything legal had said. Caleb is crying. He thinks he got hurt. Isaiah's face did not break, but something behind his eyes did. This was the lowest place a good choice could take a father. Close enough to the truth to see it breathe, far enough from his child to feel a promise tearing in two. Grant lowered his voice. Sign now, Mr. Cole, and this ends quietly. Isaiah looked at the statement folder under the attorney's arm, then at Eleanor, then at the child's note. No, he said. One syllable. No do querastion. No angue. Pierce gave a tired sigh. Document refusal and terminate access. The guard moved toward the door with Isaiah's badge and the evidence sleeve. Isaiah did not fight him. He only turned to Nurse Monroe. Put the note where she can see it. Grant snapped. Absolutely not. Isaiah kept his voice low. If I'm wrong, it's just paper. If I'm right, it may be the only thing in this room that isn't asking something from her. Nurse Monroe held his gaze for half a second, then took the sleeve from the guard before fear could talk her out of it. She opened it, removed Caleb's note, and placed it beside Eleanor's hand, just below the diamond watch, the pencil words facing up. See people first. Nothing happened. Pierce almost smiled. Security took Isaiah by the elbow. Then Eleanor Whitaker's thumb moved once, not against the sheet this time, but toward the note. Nurse Monroe's breath caught. Grant whispered too quickly, "That proves nothing." And beneath the ventilator's steady hiss, Eleanor's thumb tapped the paper a second time. Nurse Monroe did not move after Eleanor Whitaker tapped Caleb's note a second time. Neither did Isaiah. The room held its breath around the ventilator, as if one careless sound might send the truth back into hiding. The child's penciled words sat beneath Eleanor's thumb, small and crooked beside the diamond watch. See people first. Dr. Pierce stepped forward first, his white coat cutting between the bed and the people watching from the glass. "Involuntary reflex," he said. "Remove him." Nurse Monroe lifted one hand. No, it was not loud. That was why everyone heard it. She looked at the attorney, then at the printed monitor strips, then at Eleanor's thumb resting on the note. "Ask her." Grant Vale's face hardened. "This is absurd." Isaiah, still held by security at the elbow, spoke before fear could swallow the moment. "Give her a pattern." Pierce turned on him. "You are not running a neurological exam in my ICU." Isaiah did not look away from Eleanor. "One tap for no, two taps for yes. Start with something nobody can coach." The attorney hesitated. Liability had shifted shape. It no longer pointed only at the janitor. It pointed at every person who had ignored the woman in the bed. She stepped closer. "Mrs. Whitaker, can you hear us?" Nothing happened. Grant almost smiled. Then Eleanor's thumb lifted, trembled against Caleb's note, and tapped twice. The sound was tiny, barely more than paper answering skin. But the guard's hand loosened on Isaiah's arm. Monroe covered her mouth. Pierce stared at Eleanor's thumb as if it had broken a rule more powerful than medicine. Isaiah did not smile. He watched the strain gather at the corner of Eleanor's brow, the faint pull beneath the tape on her cheek, the terrible effort of a woman forcing a locked body to carry one small truth at a time. The attorney swallowed. "Did you understand the conversations in this room tonight?" Two taps. Grant stepped back. "This is unreliable." Isaiah's voice stayed low. "Ask her about the word." Monroe leaned closer. "Mrs. Whitaker, did your heart rate rise when Mr. Vale said succession because you understood him?" Two taps. The room went silent in a way no money could buy. Pierce opened his mouth, but the attorney raised her hand. "Did Mr. Cole upset you?" Eleanor's thumb hovered over the paper. One tap. "No." The security guard looked down at Isaiah's badge, as if the word janitorial had suddenly become harder to read. Grant's voice cut through the quiet. "Awareness does not prove intent. She is compromised. She cannot speak for the company." Eleanor's thumb hit the note once. "No." Then, slowly, painfully, she dragged it toward Isaiah's badge lying beside Caleb's words. Monroe understood before anyone else did. "She wants him closer." Isaiah stepped forward only after the attorney nodded. No victory, no performance. Just a father with floor wax on his boots, walking back to the bedside of a billionaire they had already buried. He bent near enough for her to hear him over the ventilator. "Mrs. Whitaker, did you stay quiet because you wanted to hear who would use your silence?" A tear slipped from beneath Eleanor's closed lashes and disappeared into the tape on her cheek. Two taps. Grant's phone went still in his hand. Every accusation built against Isaiah collapsed inward. He had not exploited a patient. He had protected the only witness no one believed was still there. The attorney turned to security. "Release him." The guard let go like the order had burned. Isaiah unclipped his badge, placed it beside Caleb's note, and whispered, "Ma'am, they're listening now." Eleanor's thumb tapped twice. Monroe looked toward the glass wall, where board members had risen from their chairs, expecting a succession update. "Call an emergency ethics review," she said, "and lock this room down before anyone moves her." Outside the ICU, the people who had come to divide Eleanor Whitaker's silence watched a janitor stand beside the woman who had just taken it back. 3 weeks later, room 714 no longer sounded like a machine trying to keep a secret. The ventilator was gone. Eleanor Whitaker sat in a rehabilitation chair by the window, a pale blanket over her knees, one hand still weak, the other resting near a small plastic frame on the side table. Inside it was Caleb's note. See people first. The paper still carried the crease from the night security, had sealed it like evidence. Isaiah Cole stood near the door in his navy janitorial shirt, not because anyone had ordered him there, and not because he needed to prove he belonged. He stood there because Caleb was beside him, holding his hand, looking at the woman his father had refused to leave inside silence. Eleanor could speak now, but only in thin, careful pieces. Each word cost breath, and that made the room listen. Your father, she told Caleb, did not help me because I was rich. Caleb looked up at Isaiah first, checking if praise was safe. Isaiah gave him one small nod. Eleanor continued, rough but steady. He helped me because he saw me. No cameras were allowed in that room. Eleanor had refused the network interviews, the staged apology, and the glossy headline that would have turned Isaiah into a symbol before asking whether he wanted to be one. What she did instead was quieter and harder to fake. Grant Vale was removed pending criminal and corporate investigation. Dr. Pierce was placed under external review. Every locked chart, sedation override, and restricted access decision from that night was turned over to an independent ethics board. The Grace Children's Wing was not liquidated. It was expanded, and beside the first-floor elevators, where surgeons, visitors, and cleaning staff all passed the same wall, Eleanor ordered a new policy engraved in black letters. Every patient is spoken to as though they can hear. No exceptions. Isaiah did not accept a luxury car. He did not accept a penthouse, a pity promotion, or a title designed to make the hospital look generous. He accepted back pay for the night they suspended him. He accepted a formal clearing of his record. And after Eleanor asked, not offered, asked, he agreed to help train staff on patient dignity while keeping his union position until he decided what came next. My son needs to see me work, he said, not be bought. Eleanor understood the difference. Caleb stepped closer to the framed note and touched the plastic edge with one finger. You kept it, he said. Eleanor smiled, and the effort made her eyes shine. I needed it, she answered. Grown-ups forget faster than children. Isaiah looked down at the janitorial badge clipped to his chest. The same gold letters were there. The same word that had been used to dismiss him, accuse him, and decide how little his voice was worth. But Caleb's note was taped behind it again, not hidden now, just folded where Isaiah could feel it whenever the world got loud. As they left the rehab room, Eleanor raised her weak hand. Isaiah stopped. She took a slow breath and said the sentence she had been saving. Mr. Cole, the night they all waited for my silence, you gave me back my voice. Isaiah rested one hand on Caleb's shoulder. No, ma'am, he said softly. You still had it. I just believed you before they did. Caleb smiled then, small and proud, and Isaiah finally let himself smile back. If you were Isaiah, would you have risked your job, your reputation, and your child's peace for someone everyone else had already counted out? Have you ever been misunderstood while trying to do the right thing? Leave the city or country where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories about dignity, courage, and the people the world almost overlooks.